Welcome to the second section of videos, Master CRUD Operations and Navigation with the No application. In this video, we will set up and review a project created with the React Native CLI. The objectives of this video are to review the directory structure of the project, install packages to enhance development, and discuss application architecture and the project directory structure we will use throughout this project. Let's start by discussing the React Native CLI package. Previously, this was a global package that would be installed with npm or yarn. You'll notice that Facebook instructs you that if you've previously installed a global React Native CLI package, you should please remove it as it may cause unexpected issues. Instead of installing through npm, you can now install via npx, which comes with Node. If you aren't familiar with npx, it's a tool for executing Node packages from the npm registry, versus npm, which actually manages packages but does not execute them. The command to generate a new project would be npx react-native init your project name. You would also use npx to run your application. For example, if you wanted to run an iOS application, you would use the command npx react-native run-ios. Let's start with generating our new notes application. In the terminal, run the command npx react-native init react native notes. This will take some time to download the project template and install additional dependencies. Once that's complete, you'll see the instructions on how to run the app in iOS or an Android environment. Now let's move over to a code editor to review the initial project structure that the React Native CLI provides. I'll be using VS Code, and you'll see that on the root of our project, there will be an assortment of configuration files like Babel, Prettier, and Watchman, which for the most part, you can leave these alone. Towards the top of your project, you'll notice Android and iOS directories. Let's look inside the iOS directory, and you'll see that it's a full-on iOS application. There's an actual Xcode project that can be opened and ran in Xcode. The Android application is the equivalent, which can be opened in Android Studio. Now back on the root of our project, there is the starting point of the application, which is the index.js file on the top level. The app component that you see here is what is rendered to the simulator. So this is a normal React component, but you'll see there are some items imported from React Native, like safe area view, style sheet, scroll view, text, and status bar. Back in the index.js file, we're importing app registry. An app registry is used to register the component that we just created. Think about the app registry as the React DOM render method, but instead of rendering to the DOM, we're registering the component with React. Now that we're familiar with the template the React Native CLI has provided, let's install and configure some of our packages we'll be using for our Notes app. For styling, we're going to use native base, so let's start by installing native base. We'll do this by doing an npm install native base. Depending on what version of React Native you are using, you may need to input the React Native link command. Since we want to store our notes when the app is offline, and setting up a backend is outside the scope of this course, we are going to utilize React Native async storage. Async storage is a key value storage system that is global to the app and can be used for both platforms. So for this, we're going to do an npm install at react-native-community/async-storage. If you're using a version of React Native that is less than or equal to 0.59, you'll need to link the packages and do a pod install. We are going to utilize multiple screens in our app, so let's install React Navigation. So we'll do an npm install react-navigation. We'll discuss navigators in depth later, but since there are multiple UI approaches to navigation, we'll need to add some dependencies. So let's install React Native Gesture Handler, React Native Animated, React Native Screens, and React Navigation Stack. We are using React Native version 0.61.5. So for our installation of React Navigation, we need to complete the link in iOS. We'll do this by navigating to the iOS directory and then doing a pod install. For Android, we'll need to finalize the React Native Screens installation. So in the dependencies section in our Android app build.gradle, you'll need to add these two lines. If you're using React Native 0.59 and lower, head over to the React Navigation to get in started docs for the steps you'll need to take for installation. The last step we'll need to do for our package installation is to add React Native Gesture Handler to the top of our index.js file. Before we move on, let's briefly discuss our app's architecture and directory structure. Due to the flexibility of the template we use for React Native CLI, you can organize as you prefer. Since this will be a simple project, I'm going to create a couple of directories to organize my code in a way that will make sense to anyone who might maintain or work on this one day. I'm going to create a component directory, and this is where I'll place all reusable components that can be utilized. Then I'm going to create a contexts directory. Here I'll place the context object for my application. Lastly, I'll create a screens directory, and these will mostly be container components that will organize my components in context into a screen of my application. Now we're ready to move on.